Welcome to her new peak. Subscribe for stories of growth, resilience, and new beginnings. Chapter 1. When Clara Whitmore walked into the charity nursery wing with her 6-year-old daughter holding one hand and her 4-year-old son holding the other, the first thing she saw was her husband's mistress standing beneath the donor wall, laughing at her name. Vanessa Hale had one manicured finger pressed against the bronze letters that read Whitmore Family Pediatric Recovery Center. She wore a cream suit Clara recognized from a private invoice, pearl earrings Clara had once left in a velvet drawer, and the soft, triumphant smile of a woman who believed the building already belonged to her. "You really brought the children?" Vanessa asked, loud enough for the volunteers at the registration table to hear. "Clara, that is almost brave, or desperate, I can never tell with you." Clara felt Lily's fingers tighten around hers. On her other side, Noah leaned closer against her coat. The boy still had a paper airplane folded from the hospital program in his pocket, and he looked up at Vanessa with the solemn confusion of a child who understood cruelty before he understood adultery. Across the marble lobby, Clara's husband, Bennett Whitmore, turned from a group of board members. He was handsome in the polished, expensive way that made strangers trust him too quickly. A navy suit, a silver tie, a smile trained by private schools and television interviews. For 8 years, he had introduced Clara as his quiet wife. For the last 5, he had introduced Vanessa as his foundation strategist. Today, he did not introduce Clara at all. "I told you this was a donor event," Bennett said, crossing the lobby. His voice was low, but his irritation was public. The children should not be here. Clara looked past him to the ribbon stretched across the entrance of the new wing. Cameras waited. A local news crew adjusted its lights. Several hospital executives stood near the podium, pretending not to listen. "Their names are on the invitation," Clara said. Vanessa smiled as if Clara had just confirmed a private joke. "As decoration, sweetheart. The public loves a family image." Bennett's jaw tightened. "Vanessa, enough." But he did not move away from her. He did not tell her to remove Clara's earrings. He did not ask why she had placed herself beside the donor wall like a portrait already hung in the right room. Instead, he looked down at Lily and Noah with a rehearsed softness that made Clara feel colder than if he had shouted, "Kids, go with Miss Parker from my office. She has cupcakes in the green room." Lily hid behind Clara's coat. Noah shook his head. Clara said, "They are staying with me." That was the first moment Bennett's smile cracked. For years, Clara had been easy to manage because she had allowed him to believe she was easy to manage. She had nodded during dinners where he checked his phone under the table. She had slept in a guest room when he claimed late meetings made him too tired for conversation. She had sat silent in cars while Vanessa's perfume lingered on his cuff. She had not divorced him when the first hotel receipt appeared. She had not divorced him when Vanessa sent a photo of Bennett's hand resting on her knee, pretending it was an accident. She had not divorced him when Bennett stopped coming home before the children fell asleep. Everyone thought silence meant weakness. Clara had learned that silence could also be storage. Bennett leaned close enough for only her to hear. "Do not embarrass me today." Clara glanced at the donor wall again. Her children's names were there in smaller letters beneath the family name, but not hers. Bennett had removed her first name from the final plaque proof 6 months earlier, calling it a branding decision. Clara had signed nothing. She had said nothing. Now Vanessa placed a hand lightly on Bennett's arm. "Maybe she came because she finally understands this is your world, not hers." Clara smiled then, small and almost tired. It was the kind of smile people mistook for surrender because they had never seen a locked door from the inside. "No," Clara said. "I came because it is time the children see what their father built." Bennett looked relieved for half a second. Then Clara added, "And what he stole to build it." The lobby quieted in a way no microphone could have created. A volunteer froze with name tags in her hand. The hospital president turned his head. Vanessa's smile remained, but her eyes sharpened. Bennett laughed once, too loudly. "Clara is emotional. She has been under stress." "I have," Clara said. 5 years is a long time to be patient." Vanessa tilted her head. 5 years? Is that what you call staying married to a man who stopped loving you? Patience?" Clara looked at the woman who had worn her earrings and eaten breakfast in the apartment Bennett claimed was for out-of-town investors. She looked at the cameras, at the board members, at the ribbon, at the children standing close against her. "No," Clara said. "I call it evidence." Chapter 2. 5 years earlier, Clara had found the first receipt in the pocket of Bennett's charcoal coat. It was not dramatic. There was no lipstick on the collar, no perfume-soaked scarf, no note written in red ink. Just a receipt from the Ellery Hotel for a suite on the 32nd floor, 2 breakfasts, 1 bottle of champagne, and a name Bennett had never mentioned. Vanessa Hale. At the time, Lily was 18 months old and asleep in a crib with 1 sock kicked off. Clara was 7 weeks pregnant with Noah and too nauseous to stand for long. Bennett had come home after midnight, kissed her forehead without looking at her face, and said a client dinner had run late. Clara held the receipt until the paper blurred. The woman she had been before motherhood might have thrown the coat down the stairs, woken him, demanded answers, and called a lawyer. But motherhood had changed her instincts. Rage rose in her, yes, but so did a colder question. If she confronted Bennett tonight, what would he hide tomorrow? So Clara put the receipt into a folder labeled household repairs. She washed the coat. She made tea. The next morning, when Bennett kissed Lily and complimented Clara's patience, she watched his mouth move and understood something important. He lied easily because he thought she had no reason to check. Within 3 months, Clara knew Vanessa's apartment building, the restaurants where Bennett paid in cash, the gifts he purchased through a company card, and the private phone he kept in the locked drawer of his home office. Within 6 months, she knew the affair had begun before Noah was conceived. Within a year, she knew Bennett had been using Whitmore Foundation accounts to disguise personal expenses. By then, she also knew something Bennett did not. The Whitmore name did not protect him as much as he believed. Bennett's grandfather had founded Whitmore Medical Capital, but the family's modern fortune had been saved by Clara's mother, Margaret Vale, a quiet woman with steel-gray hair and a reputation for reading contracts like battle maps, had invested in Whitmore when Bennett's father was weeks away from losing the company. Margaret had insisted on one condition: the Vale Trust would hold controlling rights over several key assets, including the pediatric recovery program that later became Bennett's favorite public charity. When Clara married Bennett, her mother warned her with unusual bluntness. Men who inherit applause often mistake it for ability, Margaret had said, fastening a sapphire pendant around Clara's neck before the rehearsal dinner. Love him if you choose, but never confuse love with paperwork. Clara had laughed then, young enough to think caution sounded unromantic. Margaret died 2 years after the wedding. The sapphire pendant became Clara's last private relic of her mother, and the trust passed quietly into Clara's hands. Bennett knew there was family money on Clara's side, but he had never bothered to understand the structure. He called it old money. He called it background. He called it nothing he needed to worry about. That mistake became the foundation of Clara's plan. She did not decide to stay married because she loved being humiliated. She did not stay because she feared loneliness, or because she believed Vanessa was a phase, or because she wanted to win Bennett back. The marriage ended inside her the night she found the receipt. The legal marriage remained because Clara needed time. Time to protect the children. Time to separate legitimate foundation work from Bennett's vanity projects. Time to document every transfer, every false invoice, every donor misrepresentation, every attempt Bennett made to use the family name as a shield. Most of all, time to make sure that when she finally walked away, Bennett could not drag Lily and Noah through financial ruin, custody threats, or public lies. Clara hired Elise Marlowe 3 weeks after Noah was born. Elise was a family attorney with silver hair, narrow glasses, and a voice so calm it made panic feel undignified. She had worked with Margaret Vale for years, which meant she understood both trust law and Clara's family history. When Clara placed the first folder on her desk, Elise opened it, read for 20 minutes, and then looked up with no surprise at all. "Does he know what you control?" Elise asked. "No." "Does he know what he has exposed?" "No." Elise closed the folder. "Then do not educate him too early." That sentence became Clara's discipline. While Bennett traveled with Vanessa, Clara learned the architecture of her own life. She studied trust documents after the children slept. She attended foundation meetings under her maiden name through remote votes Bennett never noticed. She approved hospital grants, reviewed vendor contracts, and quietly blocked Bennett's attempts to redirect restricted funds into publicity campaigns that benefited him more than the patients. When Bennett complained that Clara had become dull, she nodded. When Vanessa began appearing in social photos beside him, Clara clipped every article. When Bennett told friends Clara was fragile after motherhood, Clara let them believe it. Fragile women were underestimated. Fragile women were not searched for fingerprints on the machinery. The first child gave Clara urgency. The second gave her patience. Lily was observant, sensitive, and brave in small domestic ways. She noticed when Bennett missed school events, noticed when Clara's smile became careful, noticed when adults stopped talking as she entered rooms. Noah was gentler, attached to routines, always placing toy cars in straight lines across the living room rug. Clara looked at them and understood that divorce was not a single event. In families like theirs, it was a campaign. Bennett would fight dirty. He would use press contacts. He would claim Clara was unstable. He would weaponize the children because he had already weaponized everything else. So Clara built a record of stability no judge could ignore. School pickups, medical appointments, therapy notes after Lily began asking why Daddy liked Ms. Vanessa more than Mommy, bank records showing Clara paid the household staff when Bennett forgot payroll during a yacht weekend, messages where Bennett canceled visits, photos of him at charity events with Vanessa while Noah had a fever, evidence of Clara maintaining the children's lives while Bennett maintained his image. She did not hoard pain for drama. She organized it because her children deserved facts louder than his reputation. Chapter 3. By the third year of the affair, Vanessa had grown careless. Carelessness came to people who mistook access for ownership. She began calling Bennett during family dinners. She sent Clara emails disguised as foundation notes, always with a sentence that could cut without leaving a visible wound. She posted photos of hotel lobbies, private boxes, and charity previews where Clara knew Bennett had no right to bring her. At first, Vanessa avoided direct contact with the children. Then, as Bennett rewarded her boldness, she drifted closer. One afternoon, Clara arrived early at Lily's ballet recital and found Vanessa in the hallway holding a bouquet of white roses. "Bennett asked me to bring these," Vanessa said. "He is running late." Lily saw the flowers and brightened until Vanessa added, "They are from your father and me." Clara watched her daughter's face change. It was quick, but Clara saw the hurt settle. "They are from her father," Clara said. Vanessa's smile sharpened. "You can keep pretending that distinction matters." Clara took the bouquet and removed the small card. Bennett had signed only his name. Vanessa's handwriting filled the rest. That card went into a folder too. The next escalation came at a school benefit where Bennett arrived with Vanessa while Clara was helping Noah glue paper stars to a poster about kindness. Vanessa bent toward Lily and said, "Your mommy is so lucky. Some women would be replaced completely." Lily did not tell Clara until bedtime. She said it in a whisper, tucked under a quilt, her hair damp from a bath. "Mommy, can people replace mommies?" Clara sat very still. There were moments when anger arrived too large for the body. She wanted to drive to Vanessa's apartment, wanted to pound on Bennett's office door, wanted to become the kind of woman everyone expected after betrayal. Loud, shaking, uncontrolled. Instead, she brushed Lily's hair back from her forehead. "No," Clara said, "people can make bad choices. They can pretend, but no one can replace your mother." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Then why did she say it?" "Because she is cruel," Clara thought. "Because your father lets her be. Because some people feel powerful only when a child is small enough to wound." But she said, "Because she does not understand what families really are." After Lily fell asleep, Clara called Elise. "She spoke to my daughter." Elise was quiet for one breath. "Then we move the timeline forward." They did not file immediately. Filing too early would have let Bennett turn the story into a private marital dispute. Clara needed the foundation audit completed. She needed the hospital board to receive an independent review. She needed the donor misallocation traced to Bennett's approvals, not simply suspected. She needed Vanessa's role documented beyond gossip. Most of all, she needed Bennett to choose a public stage himself. Men like Bennett trusted public stages. They believed applause could drown out documents. The opportunity arrived in the form of the Pediatric Recovery Wing. Bennett had always wanted a building with his name on it. Not a fund, not a scholarship, not a quiet endowment. A building, cameras, ribbon, speeches, a plaque donors could touch. He pushed the hospital hard, promising fresh capital and media coverage. He brought Vanessa into planning meetings, claiming she understood modern philanthropy. Clara reviewed the proposal from her home office while Noah slept on the sofa with a dinosaur blanket over one knee. The project itself was worthwhile. Children recovering from major surgeries needed family rooms, therapy spaces, and better transitional care. Clara had no interest in destroying the wing to punish Bennett. That was where she differed from him. He saw charities as mirrors. She saw them as obligations. So she approved the funding through the Vale Trust with conditions. All expenditures would be audited. All donor representations would be certified. The trust would retain naming oversight until opening day. Bennett signed the conditions without reading them carefully. Vanessa forwarded the agreement to Clara by mistake with a private note meant for Bennett at the top. She still thinks she is part of this. Be gentle until the launch. After that, she can cry wherever she wants. Clara printed the email, placed it in a clear sleeve, and wrote the date in the corner. That night, Bennett came home smelling faintly of Vanessa's vanilla perfume. He found Clara in the kitchen packing Lily's lunch. He kissed her cheek because the housekeeper was nearby. "The hospital launch is going to be important," he said. "I need you to behave like a partner." Clara closed the lunchbox. "What does that mean?" "Smile. Bring the children if you must, but do not make it about you." Clara looked at him. There had been a time when she studied his face for signs of the boy she had loved at 26. Now she saw only habit, the practiced lift of his chin, the impatience around his eyes, the entitlement so old it had become invisible to him. "Is Vanessa attending?" she asked. Bennett did not even blink. "She worked hard on this." "Of course." "Clara." She waited. "Do not start." The old Clara might have said, "I am your wife." The woman standing in the kitchen knew wife had become a costume Bennett expected her to wear when cameras arrived. "I will not start anything," Clara said. And she meant it. Bennett would start it. Chapter 4. Opening day began with Lily refusing to wear the blue dress Bennett's assistant had sent. "It scratches," she said. Clara checked the tag. It was designer, impractical, and too stiff for a child expected to stand for photographs. Bennett's assistant had included a note. "Mr. Whitmore prefers the children in coordinated colors for press." Clara folded the dress back into its box. "Wear what makes you feel like yourself," she said. Lily chose a soft green cardigan and a skirt with tiny embroidered daisies. Noah chose a yellow sweater because, he explained seriously, yellow made hospitals less scary. Clara wore a simple navy dress, low heels, and her mother's sapphire pendant tucked beneath her collar. In the car, Lily asked, "Will Daddy be happy today?" Clara watched city buildings slide past the window. "Daddy will be busy." "Will Miss Vanessa be there?" Noah looked up from his paper airplane. Clara turned in her seat. "Yes." Lily's mouth tightened. She was only 6, but children raised near adult deception learned to read rooms like weather reports. "Do we have to be nice to her?" Lily asked. "You have to be polite," Clara said. "You do not have to make yourself small." The driver glanced at Clara in the rearview mirror, then quickly looked away. He had worked for the family for 7 years. He had seen Bennett step into cars with Vanessa. He had seen Clara carry sleeping children upstairs alone. In houses with money, staff often knew the truth before relatives did. At the hospital entrance, banners fluttered against a bright spring sky. Cameras were already gathered. Bennett's name appeared on a printed program beside the words "visionary donor" and "community leader." Clara's name appeared nowhere except in legal documents stored in Elise Marlowe's locked briefcase. Bennett met them at the door with a smile meant for lenses. "There you are," he said, kissing Lily's hair, touching Noah's shoulder, brushing Clara's cheek with lips that felt like cold paper. "You look nice." "Thank you." His gaze dropped to Lily's cardigan. "Where's the blue dress?" "I did not like it," Lily said. Bennett's smile stayed in place. "Next time, ask your mother to help you make better choices." Clara felt Lily flinch. She squeezed her daughter's hand. Vanessa appeared then, radiant and poisonous. She moved toward Bennett with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed her entrance. The cream suit, Clara's earrings, a diamond bracelet Bennett had claimed was for a donor raffle. She leaned close to kiss Bennett's cheek, then turned to Clara. "I was worried you might not come." "Why?" "Some women avoid rooms where they are no longer relevant." A photographer lifted his camera. Bennett gave a tiny warning look, as if Clara's reaction would be the problem, not Vanessa's cruelty. Clara did not react. She looked at the earrings. "Those are pretty," Lily said softly. Vanessa touched one pearl drop. "Thank you. Your father has beautiful taste." Noah looked puzzled. "Mommy has earrings like that." Vanessa laughed. Lots of women have pearls. Clara turned to Bennett. Do you want to explain? Bennett's eyes hardened. Not here. Of course, Clara said. Public truth has always made you uncomfortable. He leaned closer. I warned you. Before Clara could answer, the hospital president approached with a donor liaison and a nervous smile. Mr. Whitmore, we are ready for the preliminary photographs. We would love the family near the ribbon. Vanessa stepped forward automatically. The donor liaison hesitated. Mrs. Whitmore and the children, please. Vanessa's smile flickered. Bennett placed a hand at her lower back, subtle but visible. Vanessa should be included, he said. She was instrumental. The liaison's face tightened. Of course, perhaps after the family portrait. Bennett's voice cooled. She is part of the family story. The words hit the lobby harder than a slap because they were delivered softly. Clara felt Lily's hand tremble. Noah pressed his paper airplane flat against his chest. Vanessa looked at Clara with open delight. You heard him. Clara lowered herself slightly until she was eye level with Lily and Noah. Go stand near Miss Parker for a minute. I can see you from here. Lily shook her head. I want to stay. I know. Clara brushed a thumb over her daughter's knuckles. But this next part is for adults. The children moved reluctantly toward Bennett's assistant. Clara stood again. Bennett exhaled, relieved and annoyed. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. He frowned. The photographer waited, uncomfortable. The hospital president pretended to check the program. Vanessa slid closer to Bennett and took his arm. Maybe Clara can stand at the side, Vanessa said. She has always been better in the background. That was the sentence the cameras caught. Clara saw the red recording light on the local news camera. She saw Elise Marlowe step through the far entrance with 2 associates carrying document cases. She saw the hospital's chief financial officer receive a message on his phone and look up sharply. For 5 years, Clara had waited for Bennett and Vanessa to expose themselves in a room large enough to hold the consequences. The room was finally large enough. Chapter 5. Bennett noticed Elise before Vanessa did. His expression shifted from irritation to calculation. He knew Elise Marlowe by reputation, though not by intimacy. She was the attorney old families called when they wanted problems handled before newspapers learned the right nouns. Seeing her at a ribbon cutting unsettled him. Clara, he said slowly, why is Elise here? Because you invited the press, Clara said. That is not an answer. It is the reason. Elise crossed the lobby without hurry. Her silver hair was pinned neatly, her black suit severe enough to make the floral arrangements look frivolous. She nodded to Clara, then to the hospital president. Dr. Ellison, Elise said, I believe your office received the revised donor authority packet this morning. The hospital president swallowed. Yes, our legal department is reviewing it. Bennett laughed. Revised donor authority? What is this? Elise opened a folder. Confirmation that the Vail Trust retains controlling oversight of the restricted funds used for this wing, including naming, donor representation, and final compliance approval. Vanessa rolled her eyes. This is absurd. Bennett is the lead donor. Mr. Whitmore is the public representative of one donor entity, Elise said. He is not the controlling authority. Bennett's face flushed. The Whitmore Foundation funded this project. Partially, Elise said, with restricted capital released through the Vail Trust under conditions you signed 18 months ago. The hospital lobby had become still enough for the hum of the camera lights to sound loud. Clara could feel the attention turning, first with curiosity, then with appetite. Public humiliation always attracted witnesses. Bennett had counted on that when he let Vanessa belittle Clara. He had simply misjudged the direction of the spectacle. Vanessa folded her arms. And Clara is what, a messenger? Elise looked at her. Clara Vail Whitmore is the primary beneficiary and acting trustee. For a moment, nobody spoke. Bennett stared at Clara as if she had changed shape in front of him. That is not possible. It is very possible, Clara said. You just never asked. You never told me. You told me I did not understand money. Someone near the registration table inhaled audibly. Vanessa's eyes darted from Bennett to Clara to the donor wall. Clara saw the first crack in her confidence. It was not fear yet, it was offense. Vanessa had built her triumph around the belief that Clara was merely the discarded wife. Discovering that Clara was connected to the money made Vanessa angry before it made her afraid. Bennett recovered enough to smile coldly. "This is a misunderstanding. My wife's family had some legacy involvement. That does not change the fact that I built this partnership." Elise removed another document. "The partnership is currently under compliance review." "By whose authority?" "The controlling trustees." Bennett turned to Clara. "You have no idea what you are doing." Clara looked at the ribbon behind him, bright and ceremonial, meant to be cut by a man who had used sick children as scenery for his reputation. "I know exactly what I am doing." Vanessa stepped forward. "Do you? Because from where I am standing, this looks like a bitter wife trying to ruin a hospital wing because her husband moved on." That was clever. Cruel, but clever. Vanessa understood optics. She saw the cameras and tried to frame Clara as vindictive before Clara could frame Bennett as corrupt. Clara respected tactics even when she despised the person using them. "The wing will open," Clara said. "The children who need care will receive it. The nurses will be paid. The family rooms will be furnished. The therapy program will launch." She turned to the hospital president. "The Vale Trust will honor every legitimate commitment." Dr. Ellison's shoulders lowered slightly. Clara looked back at Bennett. "What will not happen is my husband's personal misconduct being hidden behind this hospital." Bennett's voice dropped. "Careful." "I was careful for 5 years." Vanessa gave a short laugh. 5 years? You keep saying that like it makes you wise. It makes you pathetic. He cheated, Clara. You stayed. You even had another child. Do you know how many times Bennett and I wondered why you did not leave?" Clara felt the words land exactly where Vanessa intended them to land. In the tender, judged place where women were always told they had stayed too long or left too soon. She thought of nights nursing Noah while Bennett ignored calls. She thought of Lily asking whether mothers could be replaced. She thought of the folders, the custody plan, the audits, the patient families depending on money. Bennett treated as a stage light. Then she looked at Vanessa and answered in a voice calm enough to make the room lean closer. "Because some traps require the person inside them to believe the door is still open." Vanessa's smile faded. Bennett said, "What trap?" Clara reached beneath her collar and drew out her mother's sapphire pendant. The stone caught the lobby light, deep blue against her palm. "My mother used to say betrayal is expensive only when you fail to keep receipts." Elise handed a packet to the hospital president, then another to the foundation's legal counsel. One of her associates moved toward the media coordinator with a sealed envelope. Bennett's assistant, pale now, stepped away from the children and whispered urgently into her phone. Clara saw Lily watching from across the lobby. Her daughter's eyes were wide, not frightened anymore, but searching. Clara lifted her chin slightly, a silent promise. "I am still your mother. I am still standing." Chapter 6. The first document projected onto the lobby screen was not a scandalous photograph. Clara had chosen carefully. She did not want a tawdry spectacle. She did not want her children someday finding clips of their father's affair played for laughter. She wanted evidence no one could dismiss as marital bitterness. So the screen showed a ledger. Restricted pediatric recovery funds. Vendor reimbursements. Consulting fees routed through a shell company. Travel expenses labeled donor development. 3 payments to Hale Strategic Communications, Vanessa's company, for services never approved by the hospital board. Vanessa made a sound too small to be a laugh. "That is confidential." Elise said, "It is audited." Bennett turned on the hospital CFO. "Turn that off." The CFO did not move. He was staring at the ledger with the expression of a man who had suspected a leak in the ceiling and just discovered a flood behind the walls. "Bennett," Dr. Ellison said quietly, "is this accurate?" "Of course not," Bennett snapped. "This is taken out of context." Clara had expected that. Denial was always his first room. Rage was the second. Victimhood came later when the doors began locking. The next slide appeared. Emails between Bennett and Vanessa discussing how to present her consulting role to donors. In one message, Vanessa wrote that hospital boards loved women with soft voices and sad children if they stayed in the background. Bennett replied, "Clara will stay where I put her." A murmur moved through the lobby. Vanessa's face went white beneath her makeup. Bennett looked at Clara with raw hatred. "You hacked my private account." "No," Clara said. "You used the foundation server." Elise added, and you copied Miss Hale on restricted donor correspondence, which triggered internal review rights under the agreement. This is marital surveillance, Bennett said. This is harassment. This is compliance, Elise replied. Clara watched Vanessa's hand drift toward the pearl earrings. The gesture was unconscious, a person touching borrowed armor after realizing it was made of glass. You should remove those, Clara said. Vanessa blinked. Excuse me? The earrings. Bennett scoffed. Are we really doing jewelry now? Clara kept her eyes on Vanessa. They belonged to my mother. Bennett took them from my personal safe last winter and charged the replacement appraisal to the foundation under donor hospitality. Vanessa's mouth opened. The screen changed again, a security still from the Whitmore house. Bennett entering Clara's dressing room while she was at Noah's occupational therapy appointment. A timestamp, then an appraisal invoice. Then a photo Vanessa had posted 3 days later from a private dinner, wearing the same earrings. For the first time, Vanessa looked at Bennett not as a prize, but as a problem. You said they were purchased for me, she whispered. Bennett did not answer. That silence told her more than any confession. Clara felt no satisfaction from Vanessa's shock. It was too small, too late, too concerned with Vanessa's own embarrassment. But it mattered because it shifted the room. Until that moment, Vanessa had played the cruel mistress with confidence. Now she became evidence of Bennett's pattern. Bennett stepped toward Clara. Security moved before he reached her. 2 hospital officers, joined by a private security director Clara had approved through the trust that morning, positioned themselves between them. This is my event, Bennett said. The security director, a broad woman named Marisol Dane, checked a tablet. The event is under hospital authority with Vale Trust security oversight. I am Bennett Whitmore. I know who you are, sir. The way she said sir made it sound less like respect than procedure. Clara looked at him across the narrow space security had created. You wanted the children here for photographs. You wanted me here for silence. You wanted Vanessa here for victory. You got the room you designed. Bennett's eyes flicked toward the cameras. He had finally remembered them as danger instead of decoration. Cut the feed, he said to no one in particular. The media coordinator looked at Dr. Ellison. Dr. Ellison looked at Elise. Elise looked at Clara. Clara shook her head once. The feed stayed on. Chapter 7. Vanessa did not break all at once. People rarely did. They negotiated with reality first. Her first negotiation was denial. She insisted the consulting payments were legitimate. Her second was vanity. She claimed donors liked her style, her energy, her modern approach. Her third was self-preservation. Bennett handled the invoices, she said. Bennett turned so sharply Clara almost heard the snap in his neck. Vanessa. She stepped back. You did. Do not be stupid. The insult did what the documents had not. It stripped the last romance from her face. For years, Vanessa had believed she was chosen because she was more exciting than Clara, more desirable, more alive. Clara could see the realization forming now, ugly and humiliating. Bennett had chosen her because she was useful. She flattered him. She punished Clara. She signed what he asked. She smiled in photos. She took gifts he could later deny. That did not make her innocent. It made her late. Elise held out a document to Vanessa. Miss Hale, you have the right to counsel before answering further questions. However, the hospital has requested immediate return of materials, credentials, and donor records in your possession. Vanessa looked at the paper as if it might burn her fingers. I did not steal donor records. Clara said, you forwarded restricted guest lists to a private event planner for Bennett's birthday dinner. He told me to. You did it. Vanessa's eyes filled, but Clara felt no urge to comfort her. Tears were not absolution. They were weather. Bennett saw the opening and lunged into victimhood. This is what Clara does. She waits, gathers, twists. She has always been cold. Do you think a normal wife documents her marriage for 5 years? Clara heard the old accusation beneath the new one. Cold. Quiet. Too controlled. Not enough woman when she did not collapse on cue. She glanced toward Lily and Noah. Miss Parker had taken them behind a column, but Lily peered around it. Clara could not protect her children from knowing something painful was happening. She could only model how pain could stand upright. A normal wife does not need to, Clara said. I did. Bennett pointed toward the children. And you brought them into this. The room shifted again. That was his best weapon, and he knew it. Clara had brought the children. Vanessa had mocked her for it. Now Bennett tried to turn protection into harm. Clara had prepared for that too. I brought them because you listed them on the press schedule, she said. Elise handed another page to Dr. Ellison. The hospital received a media plan from Mr. Whitmore's office specifying photographs with both children, including a family portrait featuring Miss Hale. The photographer lowered his camera, visibly uncomfortable. Bennett's face reddened. That was a draft. With wardrobe instructions, Clara said, and positioning notes. Lily on your left, Noah in front, Vanessa beside you, and me at the outer edge. Vanessa looked at Bennett again. This time her expression held something like disgust, but Clara did not mistake it for moral awakening. Vanessa was disgusted because she had discovered she had been placed too. Clara turned to the hospital president. My children will not be used for that image. Dr. Ellison nodded. Of course. Clara crossed the lobby and knelt before Lily and Noah. For one quiet breath, the room behind her blurred. Lily threw her arms around Clara's neck. Noah pressed his face into her shoulder. Are we in trouble? He whispered. No, Clara said. You are safe. Is Daddy mad? Yes. Lily pulled back. At us? Clara cupped her daughter's face. No, at the truth. Behind her, Bennett said her name in a tone meant to command. Clara stood and brought the children with her, one on each side. She did not hide them now. Hiding had never protected children from family lies. It only taught them to doubt what they saw. Bennett, she said, the custody petition was filed this morning. His eyes widened. Temporary orders request that the children remain in their current home, school, and medical routines. Your visitation will be structured until the court reviews your use of them in media planning and your exposure of them to Ms. Hale's harassment. You cannot do that. I already did. He laughed, but the sound broke at the end. No judge is going to take my children because you are jealous. Elise's voice cut cleanly through his. The petition does not rely on jealousy. It relies on records. Bennett looked at the crowd, searching for allies. He found employees afraid of the audit, board members protecting themselves, hospital executives stunned by liability, and cameras still recording. For the first time since Clara had known him, there was no room willing to become his mirror. Chapter 8. The ribbon cutting did not happen at noon. Instead, the hospital moved donors into a conference room while legal counsel reviewed emergency governance procedures. The press remained in the lobby, fed just enough official language to keep them from inventing their own. The children were escorted to a family lounge with Clara, Elise, and a hospital social worker who brought Noah apple juice and gave Lily a coloring book without asking questions. Clara sat between her children on a low sofa and felt exhaustion move through her bones. People imagined revenge as heat. Clara had found it was mostly logistics, timelines, copies, signatures, court stamps, childcare, compliance rules, calm replies to insulting emails, the steady decision not to let one man's betrayal consume everything worth saving. Lily colored a flower purple. Mommy, are you divorcing Daddy? Clara had promised herself she would never lie to her children in the name of making adults comfortable. Yes, she said gently, I am. Noah's lower lip trembled. Will Daddy live at our house? No. Will we still see him? Yes, if it is safe and healthy. A judge will help make rules. Lily pressed hard with the crayon. Miss Vanessa said you were pathetic. Clara closed her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, Lily was watching her with an intensity that felt older than 6. Miss Vanessa was wrong, Clara said. Why did you wait? The question was simple. It was also the question strangers would ask online, relatives would ask at dinners. Vanessa had asked with cruelty, and Clara had asked herself in darker hours. Clara took Lily's hand. Because leaving is not always one step. Sometimes a mother has to build a safe place first. I wanted to make sure you and Noah could stay in your school, in your home, with your doctors, and that no one could take important things away by lying. Lily frowned. So you were building? Clara smiled. Yes. Noah looked up. Like blocks? Like blocks. And Daddy knocked them? Daddy made choices that hurt people. Noah considered that, then leaned into her side. Elise watched from near the door with an expression Clara could not read. After a moment, she stepped into the hallway to take a call. The call lasted 6 minutes. When Elise returned, her face had become all business. The Foundation Board is convening emergency session at 3. Bennett has been suspended pending review. The hospital will proceed with the wing opening under revised donor representation, but not today. Clara nodded. Good. There is more. Vanessa's counsel has contacted my office. Clara raised an eyebrow. Already? She wants to provide documents. Lily looked up. Clara smoothed her daughter's hair, then stood and walked with Elise to the far side of the lounge. What documents? Clara asked. Messages, account instructions, a recording from last month where Bennett discussed transferring consulting blame to her if the audit escalated. Clara was not surprised. Bennett had always prepared exits for himself through other people. Do we need her? Clara asked. Legally, she strengthened several points. Morally, that is your choice to decide how much space she gets in the story. Clara looked through the glass wall to the lobby. Vanessa sat alone on a bench now, her cream suit no longer luminous under the hospital lights. She had removed the pearl earrings and placed them in a clear evidence bag beside her. Her face was blotched. She looked younger and less dangerous, but Clara reminded herself that wounded vanity could mimic remorse. She does not get redemption because Bennett hurt her too, Clara said. Elise nodded once. But if she has evidence, we use it. Agreed. Outside the lounge, Bennett appeared at the end of the corridor. Security stopped him before he came within 20 feet of the children. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly disordered, and his face had shifted into the expression Clara knew from private arguments, wounded authority. Clara, he called, we need to talk like adults. She stepped into the hallway, closing the lounge door behind her. Now you want adults? He looked past her toward the children. Let me see them. Not while you are like this. Like what? Their father? Like a man who tried to use them as props 2 hours ago. His mouth twisted. You think you won because you embarrassed me? No. I think the audit began because you misused restricted funds, the custody petition was filed because you involved the children in your affair, and the divorce is happening because our marriage ended years ago. You had my son after you knew. There it was. The accusation Vanessa had sharpened, and Bennett now tried to throw with heavier force. Clara felt the hallway narrow around her. For years, that fact had been the tenderest part of the story. She had learned of the affair while pregnant. She had made medical decisions, emotional decisions, legal decisions under pressure no one else could measure. Bennett wanted to turn Noah's existence into proof of Clara's weakness. Her voice lowered. Do not use my child to excuse your betrayal. Our child? Then act like his father instead of using him as a weapon. Bennett's eyes flashed. For 1 second she saw the man beneath the polish. Not brilliant, not charming, just furious that the furniture of his life had moved without permission. You planned this whole thing, he said. Yes. The admission struck him harder than denial would have. Clara stepped closer, not enough to threaten, just enough that he had to hear every word. I planned the bank accounts you could not drain. I planned the custody record you could not rewrite. I planned the audit you could not bury. I planned the foundation transition so sick children would not pay for your vanity. I planned a home where Lily and Noah would wake up safe after you finally lost the right to perform fatherhood for cameras. Bennett stared at her. And I planned to leave you, she said, when leaving no longer meant losing what mattered. Chapter 9. By evening, the story had spread beyond the hospital. The first headline was cautious. Whitmore Foundation donor event delayed amid governance review. The second was less cautious. Hospital launch disrupted after trustee challenges prominent philanthropist. By midnight, a clipped video of Vanessa saying Clara belonged in the background had traveled farther than any press release Bennett had ever paid for. Clara did not watch the comments. She took the children home, fed them tomato soup and grilled cheese, and let them sleep in her bed because both were too quiet after bath time. Noah curled against her left side. Lily kept one hand on Clara's sleeve, as if checking that she was still there. At 1 a.m, Clara walked downstairs and found Bennett in the foyer. He still had a key, because the temporary order had not yet been served at the house. He stood under the chandelier with a small overnight bag in his hand, staring at the family photographs on the wall. Clara had chosen those photographs carefully over the years. Lily missing 2 front teeth, Noah covered in flour, Bennett smiling at a beach picnic he had left early to call Vanessa. "You should leave," Clara said. He turned. Without cameras, he looked older. "I wanted to see the kids. They are asleep." "You changed the locks?" "Tomorrow." He laughed bitterly. Efficient. Necessary. For a moment, neither moved. The foyer held echoes of every return that had not been a return. Bennett loosening his tie after midnight, Clara waiting with cold tea, children waking in the morning and asking if Daddy came home. The house had stored more disappointment than furniture. Bennett looked at her mother's pendant. Was any of it real? Clara almost smiled at the arrogance of the question. He had lied for years, yet he still imagined himself qualified to question reality. "My love was real," she said. "My patience was real. The children are real. Your choices were real too." He swallowed. "I made mistakes." "No, you made a system." "Clara. A mistake is one lie. You built calendars around yours. You billed them, staffed them, photographed them. You let Vanessa speak to our daughter. You brought her into rooms where our children stood." He looked away. There had been a time when Clara wanted him to feel shame because she believed shame could become change. Now she understood shame in men like Bennett often became strategy. He was not sorry enough to heal. He was sorry enough to bargain. "I can fix the foundation issue," he said. "You are suspended. Temporarily. You will likely resign." His eyes hardened again. "You always did think you were better than me." "No, I thought you were better than this." That silenced him. The doorbell rang before he could answer. Through the glass, Clara saw 2 process servers standing on the porch beside Marisol Dane. Bennett saw them too. "You served me at my own house," he said. "This is not yours alone." He stepped toward the door, then stopped. The fight seemed to drain out of him in a way Clara did not trust. It was too theatrical, too convenient. "What do you want?" he asked. Clara thought about that. Once, she would have answered with love, then truth, then apology, then respect. Over time, wanting had become simpler and harder. A clean divorce, stable custody, full restitution to the foundation, return of my mother's property, no public statements about my mental health, my parenting, or the children, no contact between Vanessa and the children, and you will not use the Whitmore name to threaten hospital staff, donors, or employees cooperating with the audit. Bennett stared. "You came prepared." 5 years, she said. He flinched. The papers were served in the foyer, while family photographs looked down from the wall. Bennett signed nothing, of course. He took the envelope with a face carved from pride and walked out into the night. Clara locked the door behind him. Then she leaned against it for one private minute and let herself shake. Not because she regretted it. Because survival still asked the body to pay after the mind had finished the plan. Chapter 10. The next 3 months were not glamorous. No one made viral videos about discovery requests, therapy appointments, school meetings, or accountants working through foundation records. No headline captured the ache of explaining why their father now picked them up at supervised times or why Grandma Margaret's earrings were sealed in evidence. But those months were where Clara truly won. Bennett tried every familiar door. His lawyers sent aggressive letters accusing Clara of alienation, sabotage, and instability. Elise answered with documents so precise the threats became shorter. He sent flowers saying he missed Sunday pancakes. Clara photographed the card, sent it to Elise, and threw the flowers away before Lily saw them. Anonymous sources called him blindsided until Vanessa's attorney provided the recording where he discussed blaming her for the consulting invoices. Then Bennett appeared at school events he had ignored for years, brought oversized gifts, and tried to tell Lily that Mommy was confused. Lily told her therapist. The visitation supervisor was changed the next week. Clara did not celebrate these small victories. She documented them. Vanessa cooperated with investigators after negotiating her own limited protections. She returned Clara's earrings, several donor contact lists, and a hard drive of event files. She also gave a statement admitting she had mocked Clara and spoken inappropriately to Lily. In the statement, Vanessa wrote, I believed Mrs. Whitmore was weak because Mr. Whitmore described her that way for years. Clara read the sentence twice. It was not an apology. It was evidence of how contempt travels. Bennett had not merely betrayed her privately. He had authored a version of Clara for others to mistreat. That realization hurt more than the affair itself. One evening, after the children were asleep, Clara sat in her mother's old armchair and grieved those versions of herself. The young wife who had laughed at Margaret's warnings, the pregnant woman folding a hotel receipt into a repair folder, the quiet trustee learning the language of power because love had failed to protect her. She did not hate those versions of herself. They had carried her here. The foundation audit concluded in late summer. Bennett was required to repay misused funds and resign from all leadership roles connected to the pediatric recovery program. The hospital wing opened under a new name, the Vale Children's Recovery Center. Not Clara's name, her mother's. At the opening, there was no spectacle arranged around a man's ego. There were nurses, doctors, patient families, board members, and a small group of donors. Lily carried a bouquet for the first child who would move into a recovery suite. Noah brought a yellow paper airplane and asked if hospitals could keep lucky things. The donor wall listed the Vale Trust, the hospital team, and Margaret Vale's original pediatric endowment. Below that, in smaller letters, it read, "For children who deserve healing without becoming anyone's performance." Clara had written that line herself. After the ceremony, Vanessa appeared near the exit. She wore a gray dress, no pearls, no borrowed shine. Security watched her closely, but she did not try to approach the children. She waited until Clara stepped aside from a group of nurses. "I am leaving the city," Vanessa said. Clara said nothing. "I know that does not matter to you." "It matters if you stay away from my children." Vanessa nodded. Her eyes looked tired, stripped of the glittering cruelty she once wore like perfume. "I thought you were weak," she said. "I know. I thought if you really had power, you would have used it sooner." Clara looked through the glass wall at Lily, showing Noah the donor plaque. "That is because you thought power was the same as punishment." Vanessa's face tightened. "It is not," Clara said. "Sometimes power is waiting until the innocent people are protected." Vanessa looked down. "Bennett told me you stayed because you had nowhere to go." Bennett told everyone stories that made him feel taller. "And you let him?" Clara turned back to her. "No, I let him create evidence." Vanessa absorbed that. A bitter smile touched her mouth, gone almost immediately. "When I mocked you in the lobby," she said, "I thought I was watching you lose. You were watching the end of your usefulness." The words were not cruel in Clara's voice. They were simply accurate. Vanessa nodded once, as if accepting a verdict no court had issued. "I am sorry for what I said to Lily." Clara did not soften. "You should be." "I am." "Then carry it properly." Vanessa's eyes filled, but she did not ask for forgiveness. That was the first decent thing Clara had seen her do. Chapter 11. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Thursday in November. Bennett arrived at court in a dark suit with a new legal team and an old expression. He looked composed for the hallway cameras, but Clara knew the signs now. The tightness near his mouth, the restless thumb against his wedding ring, the way his eyes avoided Elise's document bag. The settlement was not merciful, but it was clean. Clara retained the house until both children finished school, then full discretion to sell or keep it through the trust structure. Bennett received structured visitation tied to family therapy and compliance with media restrictions. He repaid foundation funds through asset liquidation and resigned from the hospital board, the Children's Recovery Program, and 2 affiliated donor councils. Vanessa's company dissolved after regulatory review. She avoided criminal charges on certain counts by cooperating, but she was barred from donor management work for several years and required to return improper payments. Clara did not object. Consequences did not need to be theatrical to be real. In the courtroom, Bennett tried one final performance. When the judge asked whether both parties understood the custody provisions, Bennett stood and said, "Your Honor, I only want it noted that I love my children and hope their mother someday stops punishing me." Clara felt Elise shift beside her, ready to object. But the judge looked at Bennett over her glasses. "Mr. Whitmore, the court has reviewed extensive evidence that your children were exposed to adult conflict, media staging, and inappropriate third-party contact during your relationship with Miss Hale. Compliance with these orders is not punishment. It is parenting under supervision because your judgment required supervision. Bennett sat down. Clara did not smile. After court, he approached her near the elevator. Elise remained close, but Clara lifted a hand slightly. She could handle a hallway. Was this worth it? Bennett asked. Clara looked at the man she had married, the father of her children, the architect of 5 years of quiet harm. He seemed smaller now, but not harmless. Men like Bennett could rebuild charm from ashes if people let them. Clara would not let him rebuild it over her children. Yes, she said. His face twisted. You destroyed me. No, I stopped protecting you from what you built. You think the kids will thank you? I think they will grow up knowing their mother did not teach them to confuse silence with consent. The elevator opened. Clara stepped inside with Elise. Bennett stood in the hallway, rain-dark windows behind him, his reflection split by the elevator doors as they closed. That evening, Clara took Lily and Noah to Margaret Vale's old house by the lake. It was smaller than the Whitmore residence, older, with creaking floors and windows that rattled in storms. Clara had kept it through the trust but rarely visited after her mother's death because grief had made every room too loud. Now she unlocked the door and let the children run inside. Lily found a box of Margaret's gardening gloves. Noah discovered a cabinet of board games missing half their pieces. Clara opened windows, lit lamps, and felt the house inhale after years of waiting. At dinner, they ate pasta from mismatched bowls. Rain tapped the glass. Noah asked if they could come back every weekend. Lily asked if Grandma Margaret had been brave. Clara thought of her mother reading contracts like battle maps, of the sapphire pendant, of the warning Clara had once mistaken for cynicism. Yes, Clara said, very. Like you? Lily asked. Clara's throat tightened. I am learning. Lily considered that. I think waiting can be brave if you are building. Noah nodded solemnly. Like blocks. Clara laughed then, a real laugh, surprising herself. It filled the old kitchen and made both children smile. Later, after they slept in the guest room under quilts that smelled faintly of cedar, Clara stood on the porch with a cup of tea. The lake was dark, the rain softening the trees at the edge of the yard. Her phone buzzed with messages from reporters, relatives, donors, people who had ignored her for years and now wanted to call her strong. She turned the phone off. Strength, she had learned, was not a headline. It was not a perfect comeback in a lobby or a document projected onto a screen. It was not even winning in court. Strength was packing lunches while gathering evidence. Strength was telling a child the truth without poisoning them. Strength was refusing to burn down a hospital wing just because a faithless man had used it as a stage. Strength was knowing when to wait, when to move, and when to leave without looking back. Clara touched the sapphire at her throat and looked toward the sleeping house. For 5 years, Bennett had believed she stayed because she had no plan. Vanessa had mocked her for not leaving. The world had seen a quiet wife standing in the background and assumed nothing was happening there. But Clara had not been in the background. She had been at the foundation. Chapter 12. 1 year later, Clara returned to the recovery center with Lily in a green dress and Noah wearing a yellow bow tie. The lobby no longer felt like a room where she had once been humiliated. It felt like a place that had survived misuse and become useful anyway. The donor wall carried Margaret Vale's name beneath the lights. Lily slipped her hand into Clara's and asked if her grandmother would be proud. Clara looked at the families moving through the hall, at nurses guiding children through painful first steps, at Noah's paper airplane displayed in the family lounge because he had insisted lucky things should be shared. Yes, she said, after asking to see the financial reports. Lily laughed, and for once the sound did not have fear behind it. Bennett did not attend. His life had become smaller, stricter, and finally accountable. Vanessa had left the city, carrying consequences Clara did not need to watch. Clara no longer measured peace by whether they suffered enough. She measured it by whether her children slept without listening for arguments, whether the hospital report stayed clean, whether her own name felt whole in her mouth again. That evening at the lake house, after Lily and Noah fell asleep under one quilt, Clara wrote a note meant only for herself. I did not stay because I was weak. I stayed until the children were protected. I stayed until the truth had paperwork. I stayed until leaving became a door, not a cliff. Then I walked through it. For years, Bennett had believed she stood in the background because she had no plan. Vanessa had mocked her for not leaving fast enough. The world had seen a quiet wife and assumed nothing was happening there. But Clara had never been in the background. She had been building the foundation. And when she finally stepped forward, she did not just end a marriage. She protected her children, reclaimed her name, and rose into a life no one else was allowed to define. She had reached her new peak. Subscribe for more stories from her new peak, where quiet women rise, hidden power speaks, and betrayal finally meets consequences.